Nick Marsh, who are you and what do you specialise in?
I'm a strategic foresight guy. I basically work across many sectors over my career, and that could be wine, it could be kiwi fruit, it could be IT, it could be electricity. I've probably worked across most of the sectors out there, and what I do is I look 10 years out in the sector and I work with the board and usually the executive team. But my job is to say, this is where things are going. Do we agree on that 10 years out? Come back to our company strategy and say, have we got it covered? Or are we missing something that's going to come and bite us?
Yeah. So you give businesses direction on how to future-proof themselves, really. And so that's why we're here today to talk about cannabis and legalisation and how that's going to affect New Zealand and the economy, not just tomorrow, but 5, 10, 20 years down the track and the direction that the world's going in. Why do you want to see cannabis legalised?
The last 2 years that really set me looking at hemp and cannabis was a visit to Hawaii, which many Kiwis do. But I was blown away by the fact that there were a whole lot of cannabis and hemp products all over the marketplace, in the supermarket, in gas stations. And how did that happen? I thought it was all illegal. And then I came back and really did a deep dive into the industry. And I'm basically, as an analyst, I'm advocating the fact that if we have a yes vote, what's going to happen is that the whole cannabis in New Zealand industry, what's the best way for us to proceed as a whole, will be reopened. Even though there's this law here and these regulations there, etc., it will be reopened and looked at again. What I'm also feeling is that we need to look much broader. We need to understand all things cannabis, because we have got it all broken up into different parts. We've got too much illegal parts going. The legal parts are medicinal and the hemp are terribly constrained. We've got a mess. And we risk losing a hell of an opportunity for our economy and for our young people.
I think that's a really important point to bring up is this is not just about cannabis. This yes vote is going to open up the doors all around for hemp and everything related to the plant, yeah?
I'm of a certain age. I probably came up in the 60s, a baby boomer, and I think a lot of people of my generation need to really understand what cannabis is. Many of us, perhaps as students, we knew what it was for a few years at university, but essentially now it's far more important and serious to understand what it is. What it is, it's one plant with different variations, different strains. The whole understanding of the plant is what's in the plant, which is the most important thing in it is cannabinoids. These are the extracts. It is the space between food and medicine.
What I want people to realise from you and your experience and your specialty is what is the overall economic impact of legalisation for New Zealand?
If I was flying in here, I'd never been to New Zealand, and I was asked to comment from a strategic foresight point of view of what we could have in 10 years' time as a small country if we manage the whole cannabis economy and just open it all up and have a look at it as if we were starting off the wine industry. Okay. Remember, the wine industry started off only because of the deregulation of the paranoia about alcohol, right? It's going to be partly dependent on how our entrepreneurs get up and run with it, because basically we have to be an exporter. So imagine in 10 years' time, probably in less than 10 years' time, we would have equivalent of a $1.7 billion economy. You know, the
medicine, nutraceuticals, recreational hemp.
Exactly.
That's massive. Wow. So you see, especially coming up to a worldwide crisis with the economy, you see hemp and cannabis becoming almost a saviour for New Zealand's economy.
Essentially, what are we good at? We're good at exporting. We're a little place with 5 million people. We are known around the world as being fantastic at growing spectacularly high quality food and beverage. We are brilliant at exporting and marketing highly branded value propositions, particularly to, let's call them the discerning customer base of the world. If you go back in history, maybe 20, 15 years, the wine industry and kiwi fruit, they both had a good hard look at themselves and said, how can we make a great living for New Zealand out of these two fruits? And they were very clever in how they do it. And that's what we need to do with cannabis. We can do the same thing again.
The wine industry was so well established. You had the Spains, you had the French, the Italians, they ruled it.
And the Aussies.
And then out of nowhere, New Zealand comes in, and within 20, 30 years, we're at the top. And we could do the exact same thing.
Entrepreneurial flair did it. And working together across the companies, the collaboration, taking a New Zealand proposition into...
they combine together.
They combine and work together. They competed like hell in this market, but they combined, and then we could all do that same thing again. The biggest market, the market in America last year was 1.2 billion CBD market. 1.2 billion. 1.2 billion, which is growing 30% year on year, which takes you to a very large number over 10 years. And we're going to rule ourselves out of that market? Really? And one of the places we need to look at is Colorado. So Colorado is a state, similar population to us, close to 5 million. They're the longest established experimental community that we could compare ourselves with. And they're doing pretty damn well. Pretty damn well. They have a 1.7 US billion economy. 1.7 billion. Wow, think of that, and that's American dollars, I say.
It's like 2.5
Think of that here. I mean, Grant Robertson, have a think about this. Last year, 300 million in tax revenues. Interesting enough, they pump a chunk of that back into the community. In fact, 90 million goes into their school building program. So it's quite interesting.
So every single year, they're going to be able to give 150 million New Zealand dollars to build new schools.
Yeah. And they have another chunk of money that goes into they've set up a medicinal research, cannabis research, like a university. So in other words, what they're doing is they realize there's a hell of a responsibility to monitor and protect the health and safety of their population. They're a liberal state. They're not sort of crazy stuff. They're basically like us. They're just like us, really.
But for my film, I studied Oregon, which is just like us. It's the same story. They have $200 million in tax. They have 20,000 jobs. This is just cannabis, not even hemp. They have pulled themselves out of what was a falling economy. And we could do the exact same thing. People think this is just about Kiwis smoking weed. No, this is about a huge industry that is going to go international. The industry is happening. We want to jump on and be able to supply that industry.
Let me finish on 40,000 jobs. How does that grab you?
Wow.
We have regions crying out, and the young people crying out for a future. Hell of a dented the tourist economy in terms of the loss of international tourists, which will come back eventually, but still, the damage in the regions is severe. Why would we turn that down?
That is 40,000 jobs specifically to cannabis and hemp.
Yeah.
That is not the auxiliary businesses that are going to be the accountants, the consultants, the security, the construction. You've got so many jobs. This is huge. And that's what people need to view it. They need to view this not as marijuana and weed, that kind of philosophy and that kind of image.
Stop those words.
Exactly. That's why I'm trying to put those in this basket here. This is what people are viewing it. We need to move away from that and view it as a high-grade, well-established, boutique industry. Cannabinoids.
In actual fact, we should call the sector cannabinoids. I think the word weed and the word marijuana are out of date. Now, the reason I say that is when you go to California, and I've listened to a lot of interviews with various CEOs of companies over there in the cannabis and hemp world, they talk about the cannabinoids. Products, THC dominant products or CBD dominant or CBN products. I think they think of it like we think about wine. I'm quite a fan of wine. I have my favourite grapes, which at the moment probably were Pinot Gris and Pinot Noir. So they think about their favourite formulations. Right? This amount of milligrams of CBD or whatever. If we think cannabinoids, that breaks open a whole lot of thinking, because the same cannabinoids that might be in a medicine can appear in a nutraceutical, okay? And in fact also can appear in a botanical topical, a cream. So in other words, it's the cannabinoids that count. And those words like marijuana and weed and dope and all this stuff is really unhelpful, because it basically leaves you in this kind of world that a lot of those American states they've abandoned. This thing is like going into a cannabis dispensary over there. It's like a boutique. It's like a really high-end liquor store. And people learn how to actually mix and match what they want out of the evening, what they want to feel, with what particular cannabinoids are going to fit their particular body. And remember, Cannabinoids are bespoke. And so I might go and say, oh, I'd like to have a glass of that particular Pinot Noir. We'll have dinner tonight with my wife and a couple of family members. That will hit the job. That'll fit with our meal. That's what they do. But a lot of people are choosing to use cannabinoids instead of alcohol.
Yeah.
So you're going, we're not on the right page of what's going on in the rest of the world.
And we also talk about our binge drinking problem, our overconsumption of alcohol. Here's something that people often, proven, choose to use over alcohol. And people can't see that we're going to mitigate the risks of alcohol by legalizing cannabis. You've made a comment that I really enjoyed, and I wanted to get into it, that this plant is so extraordinary that it's the best thing we've found since antibiotics.
The reason I say that is because of the discovery, which continues, research continues, of how the endocannabinoid system works in our body. And this research, remember, was stopped over the last century for decades. So no researchers could get any grants to do this research. Now there's this flood of research. There's a thing called the endocannabinoid system in each of our bodies. What it does is it basically restores all different parts of our body when we're out of sorts. It restores balance, homeostasis. Yeah. How does it do it? Well, actually we generate these cannabinoids inside our own body. We generate our own cannabinoids because they're devices, they're molecular compounds that enable communication between the brain and where the issues are problems in our body where we've got out of balance, right? The amazing thing is that this plant, cannabis, actually has the same cannabinoids in. So they can talk to our system to stay in balance, right? And you might say, well, why do we need it? We've got these cannabinoids, we generate them. Because we get run down. Yeah. We get run down. The stress of life, poor diet, and all these things, and we get out of balance in our system. And once we're doing that, we're heading towards diseases and problems. Most of the terrible diseases that we're all frightened of are autoimmune diseases that come from within our own body. Mm. And what's happening is our own system, our own immune system, is not fighting them effectively. That's how we get really sick. And all of this is a bit of a revelation to me because I never really realised how the body worked until the last couple of years.
And I think a lot of people don't know this knowledge, and especially in your generation, the people, weed's just about getting high. No, the compounds in the cannabis plant are going to help heal you, give you a better quality of life, especially in older age, especially if there's autoimmune diseases. You've got the fibromyalgia, you've got the rheumatoid arthritis, the Parkinson's disease, even proof that it works with preventing dementia and Alzheimer's. Like this is the message we need to get across to the 65 plus year olds. So in that plant, there's a lot of these cannabinoids that people don't actually know about, but two they do know is THC and CBD.
The heart of the whole matter is THC is something which has effects on the body. It starts off pain relief, okay? If you have a large quantity of it, it ends up as affecting your perception. In the middle, it's a kind of a chilling out thing. All of that is THC. Over here, CBD is similar, but it doesn't do the altered brain perception stuff, right? And so it's theoretically completely safe. Now, the irony is that THC and CBD are the two central cannabinoids in virtually all of the current medicinal cannabis medicines. So THC over here as part of a medicine is terrific and wonderful. THC as part of somebody smoking a joint is terrible and evil and needs to be locked up. And it's the same stuff. How does that work?
The fear of that overdose, but the prescriptions are controlled. Well, people overdose and literally die with opioids every single day, and those are available for a $5, even a free prescription here in New Zealand. This plant doesn't kill anybody. The negative side effects are if you take too much. But the idea is education on don't take too much. This is how much you need to have these therapeutic benefits, have the pain relief, calm you down, especially the neuropathic pain relief. That's a huge one that people don't realize. There's not a lot of medications out there that can help people with neuropathic pain.
Precisely.
THC can.
Precisely.
Absolutely can.
I think another thing to grasp here, which is CBD, which is a huge nutraceutical market, a natural plant food that has medical and health benefits, we've made that illegal. So the only way you can get to CBD is via a prescription, okay? Only slight problem is hardly any doctors understand anything about cannabis. We only started the medicinal cannabis scheme 1st of April, okay? But I mean, in any health store in New Zealand, if you walk into the shop, you'll see yourself surrounded by natural health products that are pretty much 95% based on plants. Plant extracts, right? And then you walk down the street and you're in the pharmacy. So when you look at people going into one of these pharmacies, they all have certain amounts of knowledge and they all have what their problem is, and they make decisions. Are they going to go the pharmaceutical route or are they going to go the natural health product route? What we're doing here with the law at the moment with hemp is we're ruling out nutraceuticals. CBD is illegal in New Zealand. How does that work?
So you see great value in the nutraceutical industry of cannabis in New Zealand?
Any analyst worth their salt will tell you that the pharmaceutical piece of it is minuscule compared to the nutraceutical piece of it. Now, I'll just give you one example. Have you heard of Ben Franks, a famous All Black rugby player? So Ben Franks has been a high performance, high impact physical athlete for many years, very successful, right? Mm-hmm. He's retired. What's he doing now? He's in London and he's set up a company called Impact Sports, right? High performance athletes across all sports to make available from Israel very special CBD formulations for all sorts of benefits. One of them, which would worry a lot of us that love our sports, is concussion. So basically, concussion can be helped. Continual concussion, and that extends a player's career. Believe it or not, there are companies in the States that are manufacturing workout gear, right, which has embedded CBD in it.
Oh, wow.
So as you work out, the CBD eases your aches from stretching. I mean, this is how far it's going, and yet we're sitting here as if we're in a mud hut, not understanding it at all.
That's actually exactly what it is. We are so far behind the ball. The people moving into high performance with this stuff, they're helping with their ailments and illnesses and their quality of life, their wellness. This is about wellness.
It is.
This is what we need to move away from this recreational word.
Yeah.
This is about wellness.
Again, coming back to my generation, a lot of us would like to kind of live as long as we could, but in a good state, in good condition, in great shape. And that means embracing wellness and not relying on a doctor fixing our body when it breaks down.
100%. It's such an important message to get across. These older people that are voting no don't realise that they're going to get the most benefits from these products.
Exactly.
People want wellness, they want health, and they want to be able to just go in cheaply and buy it themselves. New Zealand is in a prime location to grow this hemp, create this CBD product that the world is going to want, but we're not allowed to. To clarify that to people, we are not allowed to grow and create CBD oil here in New Zealand. You're talking 6 times larger market with CBD, and we're not allowing that.
I think it's necessary now just to backtrack and see what have we got. We've actually got 5 cannabis sectors in New Zealand. So we've got legal hemp, okay, but hemp can only be processed in terms of just the seed and the fibre. Everything else, the cannabinoids, can't be touched. They have to be thrown away, right?
We're throwing away the 6 times more valuable
Thrown away. Over here, we have a medicinal cannabis scheme, which has been in research for the last 3 or 4 years, and now is just, they've just opened up the ability to get commercial licenses. There are 20 companies or so which are growing marijuana with THC all around you in New Zealand, and you don't know it. So in other words, if you want to get access to, say, a THC CBD formulation, it's legal over here with a prescription from a doctor, but over here in the health food store, no, you can't touch anything that's a formulation because it's illegal. So then there's the nutraceutical one, which obviously is ruled out too. Next one is the Green Fairies. Well, the Green Fairies are the natural health practitioners who have the knowledge to grow marijuana and hemp and to extract for people who either can't afford or can't get any cannabis medicines, right? There's many of them in New Zealand. I don't know how many, maybe
2,000.
2,000,
So
yeah.
20,000 growers already of cannabis in New Zealand and 2,000 Green Fairies.
Yeah. Now, interesting enough, these people are amazing people, and most of the time they've come into this area by family illness or their own illness or problems. They've come into this world and discovered that this plant existed and can help them. And out of that, they wanted to share that. And those people there are doing a great job.
Oh, they're amazing.
Now, what the official line would be, they're all dabbling in illicit things with no safety, and it's all terrible, and it'd be ideal if they were all wiped out, right? The reality of it is that how many patients of any Green Fairy have got up and complained, right?
Exactly.
And, why are people driven to Green Fairies? Number one is pain, chronic pain. When people find out they don't need to be on opioids when they're in, say, latter stages of cancer or other things, where basically you are blotted out. And I know this for a fact personally from people I know. Opioids, fentanyl, tramadol, all of this stuff is terrible stuff.
Absolutely can't use it chronically. Right. So people, yes, you can use it for acute pain, but if you have to use it chronically for chronic pain, it destroys you, it kills people.
Exactly. Well, I know one of these people who basically had it for chronic pain for a long time, waiting for an operation. When they finally had the operation, they basically had to go through some months of going cold turkey to get off the addiction. And you're going, that's good, is it? Now, that person didn't know anything about the fact that THC, CBD formulations exist. They can have the pain relieved without any side effects. So once people discover that, and thinking about their elderly parents or uncles and aunts or whatever, they're intolerant of being held up by that. I mean, why wouldn't you? What if you had a child who has one of these terrible things like Dravet's disease, fitting, constant fitting? Why would you say, oh, well, okay, sorry, I understand you can't let me have any of this stuff that I know will heal this child?
A lot of people were like, on the no side, say, oh no, but you can get that, you can get a prescription. These families can't afford $300, $400, $500, $600 prescriptions for their child who is fitting every single day, and CBD can stop those fits that you can buy for $30 at a gas station in Hawaii, but you have to spend $300 in New Zealand through a prescription. It's just, what's going on?
One answer is, oh, well, we set up the medicinal cannabis scheme. That's terrific. Well, I'd just say to you, look over the ditch, because the Australians started their medicinal cannabis scheme probably, I don't know, three or 4 years ago. And recently it got so bad that a Senate inquiry was commissioned into why it wasn't working for the people of Australia. Too expensive, too hard to get access to these things, and it was a bit of a scandal. Now here we are in New Zealand, we're oblivious to the fact that that is our future. That's where it's going to go, because this thing actually doesn't all work if you rule out the whole nutraceutical piece of it.
So we understand this is going to help our economy, it's going to help our wellness, it's going to help our people.
Can I just raise one more point?
Absolutely.
Basically, whenever you have a part of an economy that is illegal, then you have crime operating. And you have the whole process that we have of gangs. You basically foster crime. Probably the worst places in the world is Mexico with regard to their cocaine disaster. Furthermore, by not making it legal, you don't have any standardization and regulation of standards of safety of the product, of dosage, everything. But essentially, if we legalize this plant, these cannabinoids, what happens is you suddenly, at a stroke, increase the safety and well-being of your whole population. And you remove the criminal element. Honestly, for people of my age who say, oh yeah, that's all right, but no, we don't want this, it's bad for this, it's bad for the other. Well, what do you think is going to happen to the illegal cannabis economy, marijuana economy, if there's no vote? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So any of the harms, the societal harms, are just going to continue. So what have we gained?
This exists right now, this industry exists right now, but it's unregulated, it's in the shadows, it's in the black market. You've got 20,000 growers, you've got 2,000 Green Fairies, you've got gang members profiting off it, and if we vote no, nothing changes. People are like, oh, but we'll just police it more. We're already spending $300 million a year and it's not working. That's 87% of the total drug enforcement budget. Where's the more money going to come from? We don't have more money to put into it, but even if we doubled it, it still wouldn't work. It's really important messaging to get across to people. We've talked about the older generation, the baby boomer generation. It's important to have a message to the farmers too, because I'm from Southland. I've got, my father's a farmer. I know farming, and I know that a hectare is doing well if it produces about $2,000 profit. That's growing anything. That's the farmer standard.
This industry offers a very interesting proposition to farmers who would like to broaden their risk in terms of crops and to basically get involved in something that's far more valuable than what they're growing. I mean, the fact of the matter is the value of a cannabinoid extraction is enormous. And why on earth could we seriously consider voting no to stop all that? I don't get it.
That's huge. You've got all these people that are growing for cattle. You've got the dairy farmers getting up at 3 in the morning and working 365 days a year. And I'm saying to them, hey, you can make twice as much money working 9 months of the year. You interested? No, that's cannabis. I can't look at that. No, but look past your stereotypical view and look at the economic advantage. And then you've got to weigh up, people are like, oh, but we've got to care about our health and our wellness of our young people more than our economy. Well, the harms are about here. There are some harms, but the economic benefits are up here. So how about we use those economic benefits to mitigate the harms?
There is a shift, quite a considerable shift towards wellness, as distinct from this kind of idea your body is just a beaten up car and you wait for it to break down to go into the garage and get it fixed. And essentially the millennials, current young generation, I came across a story, and in fact I talked to the chap who is an Australian hemp farmer actually, and he shifted to hemp from just a cattle kind of station. And the reason he shifted to hemp was they had a family meeting about succession. So he said, I want to talk about succession of the farm. The farm's been going 3 generations. What do you next generation want to do with the farm? Put it all out on the table, our honest thoughts. And the young people, his children, said, you know what? We don't want to be involved in a farming that we think is unsustainable in terms of the red meat market, etc. That's not what we want to do with our lives. We want to do something meaningful. And so he said, okay, let's shift the whole strategy of the farm and let's move to the hemp side of things.
And people need to do that now and realize that this is coming. This is the future. Milk is going down, dairy's going down, meat's going down. It's not going to disappear, but it's going down. Jump on the train now, get into the hemp, which is going up real fast, or be left behind. Think about milk, think dairy industry, people think milk, right? Well, milk's the base of many other products that we create and export. We export the protein powders, the cheeses, the yogurts, the everything. Cannabis is the milk, and then we turn it into so many other products that we're going to be able to export just like dairy. So I want to bring back to the point that we have a whole new thing here in New Zealand that can be even larger than what we currently have in wine and dairy. I like to use a lot of farmers will understand this point. Before dairy, everyone was doing cattle and sheep. Everyone. And then when the price of wool went down, everyone started turning to dairy. And all of a sudden, especially in Southland, over like 5 years, I swear 80% of people I knew who were farmers switched to dairy. Like that. Because what speaks? Money speaks.
Exactly.
This is going to happen again. I guarantee, I put my hand on the table, my hand on my heart, New Zealand in 20 years, largest agriculture economy is going to be cannabis and hemp. I know it.
And I would say also, don't let the Aussies get ahead of us, please. That would be kind of humiliating.
100%. So I want to give you one final message to the New Zealand people leading up to the vote. What would it be?
Yeah, in simple terms, vote yes. Because all you're doing by voting yes is enabling the opening up of a proper strategic conversation that covers everything from harm and health and safety right through to jobs and the future of our young people. This is going to be all about the entrepreneurial flair that we already have had demonstrated. That entrepreneurial flair is pretty special. A lot of those American states don't have that. We have that, and we're just ready for the next crop with all the possibilities. And if that's going to happen, why wouldn't we right now vote yes and enable us to really get our act together? Hey, let's do it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nick, for all your expertise. This was amazing. It's really important messages to get across to people out there. Thank you, Nick. Absolute pleasure. So anyone out there with parents and grandparents in the plus 65s or any farmers out in those rural areas, send this to them. Let them be educated on the facts and reality of what cannabis legalisation is going to do for the economy of New Zealand. Share, like, comment. We have a very little amount of time to get this out there, so please use social media for all of its power. We can do this, but only together.